artists, it's Dalene McIntosh here, Epic Art Academy, doing the Epic Journey as usual. You've heard me say before, I always refer to the fact that you have got to employ good practices, technical practices in your art. One of those things that I have discussed in previous videos was not using soap and water as a solvent. You know, a lot of artists don't want to use tubes, so they figure soap and water washes the oil out of their brushes, so they think it's not a bad idea to wash your brushes in soap and oil, dip them back into your paint and keep working. And we're going to talk about what the problems are that can achieve. Why is it that in soapy water oil dissolves, but in plain water oil does not dissolve? The reason for that is because soap contains a substance or a molecule called a surfactant. Now, how does a surfactant in your oil affect what is going on here? Well, if you think in terms of now your surfactant, and your surfactant is going to be your soap. So if you add sunlight liquid into warm water to wash your brushes, you wash your brushes or even thin your paint. I've even heard of artists using soapy water to thin their oil paints down. And they don't realize that this is happening, because what's going to happen is your surfactant, I'm just going to call it surf for now, is going to hold on to a water molecule on the one side because it's positive negative charge and they're going to attract. Then you're going to have your oil molecule on that side, and same, they're both neutral because the other side of the surfactant is neutral, so the same thing happens. They're going to bond together by magnetic attraction. So now the surface of your painting, looked under a microscope and cross-section, is going to have surfactant, oil, surfactant, water, surfactant, oil, surfactant, water, or water, water, surfactant, oil, oil, whichever, but you're going to have a layer of oil and water molecules interdispersed with a surfactant molecule. So now we've got a problem, because that water molecule is going to evaporate. Next to it, we're going to have a water molecule with surfactant and oil, and then we've got water and say oil, and that water molecule is going to evaporate. Alternatively, we're going to have oils here that are attracting oxygen out of the air, and we're going to have oxygen molecules bonding to an oil, but there's not necessarily going to be an oil molecule next to it with which it can bond again. Even if there is, sooner or later you're going to have a surfactant molecule, so you're not going to create long, uninterrupted chains of oil molecules that are bonded together with oxygen. Instead, what you're going to get is you're going to get a surfactant and a surfactant and an oil and an oil and a surfactant and a surfactant, because this is where the water was. In this space here, that's where the water was, but it has now evaporated out of the oil and you ended up with surfactants and oils. The problem when you've got two surfactants next to each other, this is where the water molecule used to be. And it is a positive negative charge, and that is a positive negative charge. And as you know, that the charges in these two, because they're the same, is actually going to force your surfactant molecules to repel from one another in much the same way as if you put the two wrong sides of the two poles, opposite poles of a magnet together. You can't get them to stick together because they have this force between them. So what will happen microscopically is that you'll have a little blob of oil, and then you'll have a weak area where there's little or no molecules, and you have a blob of oil, and then nothing. And so when you look at the surface of your oil under a microscope, if ever you get an opportunity to do that, you've got weak areas. You've got little blobs of oil stuck together, and you've got weak areas where there's just surfactant and nothing else. And what is going to happen is that oil layer doesn't get a chance to absorb oxygen out of the atmosphere and turn into a polymer, so you don't end up with this lovely, strong surface across your painting. Now, why is that a problem? Mainly it's a problem because with these gaps in the surfactants and with the surfactant themselves, you're going to have an exchange of moisture happening. So this is going to let moisture in. Now, if you've got water molecules trapped underneath this layer inside, which is going to happen because remember, this is just one layer of molecules. You've got a whole lot of layers of molecules. Even a millimeter thick layer of paint is going to have a whole bunch of layers of molecules. And down here somewhere you might have, because you had water in your surfactant or in your soap, because you've now washed your brushes and mixed your paint with soap and water, you've got water molecules down here somewhere. And over time, those water molecules are going to start to degrade, and they're going to also start to grow mold. So down here, somewhere in the lower regions of these molecule layers, is going to get a layer of mold growing. Now mold is going to be a major problem for your painting because you cannot get rid of it, because you've got paint on top of it. You can't get down there to the mold to actually clean it out. And mold starts to appear on your paintings as little white, over time, little sort of cloudy white dots on your painting. If you use an organic oil and you've got now this is your microscopic bond, your microscopic layer of polymer, because there's your oxygen and it's linking everything together, and everybody is nice and stable and everybody's holding hands like good friends. This is now a pretty strong membrane effectively over your painting, and below that you're going to have the same thing happening. You know, you've got oxygen and it just keeps going down to the bottom. So artists, and again, thank you very much for bearing with me for this slightly technical, sort of scientific video, but I really just feel very strongly about making sure that you know why I say the things that I do. There is good, sound, scientific theory behind all of this, and this that I've just been talking to you now, because I've investigated it, obviously I want to know why these things happen the way that they do. Thank you for watching, thank you for joining me. Stay tuned. Bye.